Have you ever found yourself lying awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling and replaying a conversation you had 3 years ago? You are thinking about a person you don't even like. Why does it feel like your brain is physically incapable of letting go of a minor social slight, yet it struggles to remember why you actually value your own life goals? Have you ever noticed that the more you try to convince yourself that you don't care what people think, the more paralyzed you become by their perceived judgment? And perhaps the most haunting question of all, if you actually succeeded in truly not giving a fuck about anything, would there be anything left of you? Or would you just be a hollow shell drifting through a meaningless existence? Most people are currently trapped in a cycle of performative indifference. It is making them miserable. They think the goal of emotional maturity is to reach a state of cold numbness where nothing touches them. They want to be the person who can walk through a storm without getting wet. But today we are going to look at why that pursuit is not only impossible but deeply damaging. In this video, we are going to deconstruct the massive psychological lie that is modern apathy culture. We are going to look at these questions step by step. We will peel back the layers of why you feel so burdened by the world's expectations. By the end of this session, the clarity you are looking for will emerge. That sense of genuine lightness won't come from learning how to care less. It will come from understanding why you have been caring about the wrong things all along. Stick with me. The resolution to that 3 a.m. anxiety only makes sense once we have mapped out the territory of your own attention. To start, we have to address the biggest misconception floating around the internet. This is the idea that not giving a fuck means being a sociopath. We have seen the memes and the cool guy tropes in movies. We see the character who never gets angry. They never get hurt. They just breeze through life with a smirk. We look at that and think, I want that. I want to be invincible. But in psychology, the only people who truly don't care about anything are either deeply depressed or clinically psychopathic. For the rest of us, caring is a mandatory biological setting. Your brain is a giving a fuck machine. It evolved to scan the environment for threats. It looks for social standing and resources. You cannot simply flip a switch and turn off your emotional investment in the world. Think about the way we admire rock stars or rebel figures. We assume they don't care because they look messy or break rules. But if you look closer, they care intensely about their music. They care about their message or their specific tribe. They are not indifferent. They are simply highly selective. If you try to be indifferent to everything, you are not being a rebel. You are just being catatonic. You are essentially trying to uninstall the operating system of your own humanity. When you try to force yourself to feel nothing, the pressure just builds up internally. Eventually you explode over something tiny, like a dropped spoon or a slow elevator. Furthermore, this indifference often manifests as a form of social posturing. We post statements about not caring on social media specifically because we want people to see how little we care. But the very act of posting it proves the opposite. If you truly didn't care, you would not feel the need to broadcast your lack of caring. You would be too busy doing something that actually matters to you. Real detachment is not a loud declaration. It is a quiet and private redirection of energy. It is the ability to feel the sting of an insult and decide internally that it simply isn't worth the fuel required to stay angry about it. The problem isn't that you care. The problem is that you have a finite amount of fucks to give. You are currently hemorrhaging them on things that don't matter. Think of your emotional energy like a bank account. Every time you worry about a stranger's opinion of your outfit, you make a withdrawal. Every time you get upset because someone cut you off in traffic, you make a withdrawal. You feel inadequate because a peer got a promotion. Most people are emotionally bankrupt by noon. They wonder why they feel burnt out. It is not usually because they are working too hard. It is because they are overinvested in 1,000 tiny and insignificant battles. Consider the backwards law often discussed in modern philosophy. This is the idea that the more you pursue feeling better all the time, the less satisfied you become. When you give too many fucks about being happy, the very absence of happiness becomes a source of misery. You start caring about the fact that you aren't currently living your best life. That care itself becomes the barrier to actually enjoying the moment. It is like trying to force yourself to fall asleep. The more you care about the fact that you are awake, the wider your eyes stay open. We see this play out in our relationships constantly. We care so much about appearing low maintenance or cool. Because of this, we fail to communicate our actual needs. We end up giving massive amounts of emotional labor to maintain a facade of easy-goingness. This is ironically the highest maintenance way to live. We are spending our limited currency on the appearance of tranquility rather than the reality of connection. By the time we get home, we have nothing left for the people who actually matter. We spent it all on the clerk at the grocery store or the guy in the comments section. We often talk about the idea that the secret is choosing what to care about. That sounds simple on paper, but it is hard in practice. It is hard because we live in an attention economy designed to hijack our values. Your phone is essentially a device that tells you what you should care about every 3 seconds. It tells you to care about a war 5,000 miles away. It tells you to care about a celebrity's divorce and a billionaire's morning routine. When you are bombarded with these signals, your brain loses its ability to prioritize. You start to give the same level of emotional weight to a photo as you do to the health of your primary relationships. This constant stream creates a mirage of importance. Everything is presented with the same urgent notification sound. Everything has the same bright red bubble. Because of this, your brain begins to treat an email from your boss and a text from a toxic ex as equally vital emergencies. You become a reactive creature rather than a proactive one. You are not choosing your values. You are letting an algorithm choose them for you. You are giving away your most precious resource to whoever screams the loudest. This brings us back to that question. Why does your brain cling to that embarrassing memory from years ago? It is because your brain thinks that social rejection is a death sentence. In our evolutionary past, if the tribe didn't like you, then you were cast out into the wilderness to be eaten by wolves. Your brain treats a cringe moment as a survival threat. When you tell yourself you don't care, you are usually lying. You are trying to suppress a physical survival instinct with a logical thought. Logic almost always loses that fight. True emotional freedom is not about suppressing the feeling, it is about changing the value system behind it. If you value being liked by everyone, then every person you meet has the power to ruin your day. You are handing them the keys to your emotional bank account. But if you shift that value to being authentic, even if it is polarizing, suddenly someone not liking you is not a failure. It is actually a sign of success. It is evidence that you stood for something. If you are trying to be a universal donor of personality, you will eventually run dry. But if you accept that your personality only works for certain people, you stop panicking when someone's system rejects you. We are too afraid to admit that something actually matters to us. If you say you don't care about your career, you don't have to feel the pain of failing at it. If you say you don't care about finding a partner, you don't have to face the vulnerability of being rejected. Indifference is a defensive crouch. It is a way of playing small so the world cannot hurt you. This is what we might call the armor of sarcasm. We use wit and irony to distance ourselves from our own desires. We joke about how nothing matters anyway to avoid the terrifying reality that some things matter too much. But this armor is heavy. It keeps the pain out, but it also keeps the joy out. You cannot selectively numb your emotions. If you numb the pain of caring, you numb the excitement of achievement. You numb the warmth of intimacy. You end up in a grey room of your own making. You wonder why life feels so tasteless. But here is the kicker. The world will hurt you anyway. Life involves unavoidable suffering. You will get older. People you love will leave. Things you build will break. If you spend your life trying not to care, you do not actually avoid the pain. You just avoid the meaning that makes the pain bearable. This is the feedback loop from hell. You feel anxious. Then you get anxious about being anxious. Then you feel guilty for being anxious because you are supposed to be this cool person. You are essentially punching yourself in the face because you are upset that your face hurts. We often feel that we are wrong for hurting. We see people on social media who seem to have it all figured out. They never seem to get rattled. We start giving a fuck about the fact that we give too many fucks. It is a recursive nightmare. We think we should be more zen. We think we should be more stoic. This should be just another way of caring about an imaginary version of yourself. The moment you accept that you are currently a mess, the loop breaks. You stop caring about your own anxiety. Suddenly, the anxiety loses its power over you. It is the struggle against the feeling that creates the suffering. It is not the feeling itself. Let's look at the concept of the entitlement trap. A lot of our misplaced caring comes from the subconscious belief that things should go our way. We feel entitled to a life without friction. When the barista messes up our coffee, we get angry. On some level, we believe the universe owes us a perfect morning. We give a fuck about the coffee because we have a low threshold for discomfort. The more comfortable our lives become, the more we tend to obsess over smaller and smaller problems. We have all seen this. A person who has $1 million throws a tantrum because their Wi-Fi is slightly slow. Their caring has expanded to fill the vacuum of their easy life. We'll make the problem of a delayed flight feel like a personal assault. We start to care about microaggressions from the universe because we have forgotten what a real disaster looks like. We become fragile because we have spent all our energy on maintaining a bubble of perfect convenience. The moment that bubble pops, we fall apart. So how do we stop? How do we actually narrow our focus? It starts with the realization that you are going to die. That sounds dark, but it is the ultimate filtering tool. In the grand scheme of your finite life, does the opinion of that one person at the office actually matter? In 100 years, everyone you know will be gone. This realization should not make you nihilistic. It should make you incredibly picky. It should give you the permission to stop caring about the shoulds. It should help you start caring about the musts. Imagine you are on your deathbed. What are the things you will be glad you cared about? It won't be that time you got the last word in an argument on Twitter. It won't be the fact that you owned a newer car than your cousin. It will be the moments you were brave. It will be the time you helped someone. It will be the deep connections you forged. Death is the only thing that gives life perspective. Without the end, everything is equally important. With the end in sight, 99% of your daily worries reveal themselves as noise. We often find ourselves trapped in the self-awareness paradox. We think that by thinking more about our problems, we will solve them. but often the more we focus on our own flaws and anxieties, the more they grow. It is like looking at a microscopic image of a pore on your skin. It looks like a giant crater. When you zoom in too much on your own ego, every tiny scratch feels like a mortal wound. The path to not giving a fuck about the small stuff is to find something much bigger and more important than yourself to care about. Think about the way we obsess over our personal brand or our identity. We spend hours curating how we want to be perceived. This is caring turned inward. It is a recipe for neurosis. When your primary project is yourself, you are constantly under construction and constantly under critique. But when you turn your caring outward toward a project or a person or a cause, you find a strange kind of relief. You become the tool through which something else happens. Suddenly, the scratches on the tool do not matter as much as the work the tool is doing. Consider the person who is working toward a difficult and meaningful goal. They might be raising a child, or writing a book, or building a community. That person does not have the time or energy to care about a mean comment on social media. They have important things to give their attention to. The unimportant things simply fall away by necessity. If you find yourself constantly upset by trivial things, it is usually a sign that you do not have anything truly meaningful going on in your life. Your caring is looking for a target. If you do not give it a worthy one, it will settle for the petty. This is why finding your passion is such common advice, but it is often misunderstood. It is not about finding something that makes you happy all the time. It is about finding something that makes the inevitable struggle worth it. It is about finding productive pain. If you care about being a great musician, you give a fuck about the calluses on your fingers. You care about the hours of boring scales. Those negative things become badges of honor. They are attached to a value you have chosen. The person without a value just sees the calluses and complains about the pain. This leads us back to the question, if you truly didn't care about anything, you would be a hollow shell. The answer is yes. If you remove all values, you remove all movement. Action requires value. You move toward things you care about. If you care about nothing, you stay still. The goal is not to reach zero. The goal is to reach a focused 1 or 2. Without values, we have no why. Without a why, we cannot endure any how. If you reach true apathy, you lose the ability to choose between a sandwich and a pile of dirt. You lose the ability to love, because love is the ultimate act of giving a fuck. A life without care is not peaceful, it is a void. The hollow shell is the one who has successfully scrubbed their heart clean of all investment. That is not a goal. That is a tragedy. Let's talk about the maturity of rejection. To truly not give a fuck about the wrong things, you have to be comfortable saying no and hearing no. We live in a culture that tells us to say yes to everything. We are told to say yes to every opportunity and every social event and every new trend. But if you say yes to everything, you are by definition giving a fuck about everything. And if you care about everything, you are effectively the same as someone who cares about nothing. You are spread so thin that you have no impact. To choose a value, you must reject its opposite. Think of it like a value filter. If you value financial freedom, you have to reject the fuck you give about keeping up with your friends' spending habits. If you value deep focus, you have to reject the fuck you give about being immediately reachable on your phone. Rejection is the act that defines us. We are defined by what we choose not to care about. By narrowing the field, we increase the intensity of the things that remain. A laser is just light that has been restricted until it can cut through steel. Your attention is the same. Now let us address the anxiety of social media and the highlight reel effect. We are the first generation of humans who are constantly comparing our behind-the-scenes footage with everyone else's best of clips. This creates a massive amount of comparison fuck. We care about our lives relative to a fictionalized version of someone else's. We feel like we are failing at a game that isn't even real. The shift here is to realize that you are giving a fuck about a ghost. You are competing with a projection. When you stop caring about the image of success, you can finally start caring about the substance of your own day-to-day experience. We see people on vacation and give a fuck that we are at work, but we don't see the credit card debt they took on for that trip. We don't see the argument they had at dinner or the stress of their flight home. We are giving a fuck about a two-dimensional image. True maturity is realizing that everyone is currently giving a fuck about something painful or difficult, no matter how polished their Instagram feed is. No one gets a free pass on the human condition. Once you realize the cool kids are just as scared and confused as you are, their power over your self-esteem evaporates. Think about your work life. Many people are in a state of constant burnout not because of the hours they work, it is because of the emotional labor of maintaining a certain persona. They give a fuck about being seen as productive or smart or indispensable. They are terrified of being seen as average. But here is a liberating truth. Almost everyone is average at almost everything they do. Even the best in the world are only the best at one specific thing. They are likely mediocre at cooking. They might be terrible at taxes and average at parenting. When you give up the fuck associated with the need to be exceptional, you actually become free to do the work for the sake of the work. This is the safety of mediocrity. When you stop trying to prove you are a genius, you can finally ask stupid questions that lead to actual learning. When you stop trying to be the perfect employee, you can set boundaries. These boundaries allow you to be a sustainable employee. Most of our workplace stress comes from the fuck we give about things that aren't actually in our job description, like office politics or perceived slights or the need for constant validation. If you just care about doing the task well, the rest of it becomes background noise. We also have to look at the tyranny of choice. We think that more options will make us happier, but more options just mean more things to care about. If you have 50 types of cereal to choose from, you now have to give a fuck about making the right choice. If there are only 2, you pick one and move on with your life. This applies to relationships and careers and hobbies. We are paralyzed by the fear that there is a better option out there. Because of this, we never fully commit, and because we never commit, we never experience the depth that comes from staying with something through the boring and difficult parts. To not give a fuck is to commit to one path and stop looking at the other 49. This is why keeping your options open is actually a trap. It forces you to care about the potential of everything. This prevents you from experiencing the reality of anything. It is better to choose one thing and give a massive fuck about it than to give a tiny, meaningless fuck about 20 things. Depth is where the meaning is. Breadth is just a distraction. When you limit your options, you paradoxically find more freedom. You are no longer burdened by the weight of what if. So why do you still give a fuck? You still care because you are still seeking external validation to fill an internal void. You are looking for the world to tell you that you are okay, but the world is a fickle judge. If you base your self-worth on the world's fuck, you will be up one day and down the next. The inner shift we are looking for is the realization that your okayness is not up for debate. It is a baseline. Once you accept that you are fundamentally flawed and average in most ways and destined to die, and once you accept that this is true for everyone else as well, then the stakes of life actually drop. You can stop performing. Let's return to those opening questions. Why do you lie awake thinking about that old conversation? Because you were valuing being seen as perfect over being a human who makes mistakes. When you reframe that memory and say that you are awkward and that is fine because you are a work in progress, then the brain stops flagging it as a survival threat. The fuck evaporates because it no longer has a value to latch onto. You realize that the person you were talking to probably doesn't even remember the conversation. They are too busy lying awake thinking about their own awkward moments. Why do you struggle to not care what people think? Because you have not yet decided what you think. If you do not have a clear set of your own values, you will naturally adopt the values of the loudest person in the room. You care what they think because you are using their eyes to see yourself. When you develop your own internal compass, when you decide that, for example, kindness is more important than status, then the judgment of a status-obsessed person no longer hurts. It is just noise. You cannot be insulted by a critique of a value you do not hold. And finally, if you stopped caring about everything, would you be empty? We have seen now that the answer is to stop caring about the wrong things so that you have the space to care deeply about the right things. The hollow shell is not the person who doesn't care. It is the person who cares about everything and everyone. That person has no room left for a self. The clarity we promised at the beginning is this. Not giving a fuck is not about being a jerk or being lazy or being a hermit. It is the ultimate form of discipline. It is the ability to look at 1,000 different distractions and temptations and social pressures and say, that is not for me. I do not care about that. It is the act of narrowing your gaze until you are focused on the 3 or 4 things in your life that are actually worth suffering for. Because you will suffer. The question is, what is suffering for? When you walk away from this, do not try to stop caring. Instead, take an inventory. Look at where your emotional deposits are going. Are you spending your limited fucks on the comment section of a news article? Are you spending them on the fact that your house is not as nice as your neighbor's? Or are you spending them on your craft and your family and your character? The shift is not a loud explosion. It is a quiet setting. It is the moment you realize that most of the things you thought were emergencies were actually just theater. You can step off the stage. You can stop the performance. You can let the world be wrong about you. You can let the world be disappointed in you. And in that disappointment, you will find your first real breath of fresh air. You still give a fuck, and that is okay. Just make sure it is a fuck worth giving.